Jon Jones is one of the greatest UFC fighters in history. Despite his controversial personal life, no one can deny that he knows what he's doing when he steps into the octagon. So, today I'll tell you the 10 reasons that have made him one of the most dangerous fighters in the octagon. Number 10. He loves to fight. Jon Jones enjoys fighting and destroying his opponents. He has a natural talent as a fighter that puts him far above the rest of those who have joined the UFC to make money. For this reason, his passion for the sport makes him an exceptional fighter capable of winning no matter who he faces. Number 9. He has the skill and technique. In UFC, a fighter is considered to be only as good as how well he performed in his last fight. So it only takes one failure for people to forget about you and say you're a bad fighter. For this reason, many martial arts fighters avoid using unconventional techniques inside the cage for fear of losing or ruining their careers. However, Jon Jones's arrival in the UFC changed the game's rules. He is a fighter with a supreme level of confidence and an uncanny ability to decide when to employ an unorthodox technique to claim victory. He uses all kinds of strikes to crush his opponents, from flying knees and spinning elbows to axe kicks and many other unconventional techniques for a fighter of his weight. However, he is not only good at executing complicated techniques. He has also mastered the most basic techniques that most fighters rely on. That's why many of his opponents don't stand a chance against him in the octagon. Even if Jon Jones is a talented fighter, his martial arts mastery results from hundreds of hours of intense training. Although he claims not to train between fights, he has devoted countless hours to polishing his fighting arsenal. And that hard work is reflected in his multiple victories. Number 8. He has one of the highest fight IQs of any fighter in the history. Fight IQ is a fighter's ability to adjust his movements during a fight to exploit an opponent's momentary defensive openings. It is the ability to make the right decisions at the right time in a fight, either tactically or strategically, and to find weaknesses in the techniques of others. Most fights are more mental and psychological than physical. The punches and submissions we see in the octagon result from hundreds of calculations the fighter's brains make per second to find openings in the opponent. Fortunately, Jon Jones has proven to master this principle and handle pressure excellently. No matter how much punishment his body is taking, he can keep a cool head and find opportunities to turn any fight around. For this reason, he has one of the best records in UFC history, with 27 wins and only 1 loss. Number 7. He has the perfect body for martial arts. Jon Jones is not only an expert with a great repertoire of techniques. He also possesses a perfect body for martial arts, which gives him an overwhelming advantage over his opponents. With a height of 6 feet 4 inches or 1.93 meters and an extravagant 84.5-inch reach, his wingspan allows him to punish his opponents from a safe distance. In addition, his shoulder and elbow joints are counter levers to exert additional pressure and traction. When secured by grappling below the chin, his opponents must accept defeat or faint. Jones' elbows are also extremely dangerous and are as sharp as a katana. It only took one elbow to shatter Brandon Vera's eye socket. Likewise, his long legs allow him to throw brutal kicks from anywhere in the octagon, and prevent his opponents from being able to recover from the stress and physical pain. For these reasons, his physical gifts allow him to decimate his opponents and pick up victory after victory. Number 6. He has the instincts of a wild animal. Jon Jones is a killer trained to rip a professional fighter apart with a punch to the face. He has the instincts of an animal, which allows him to unleash his anger and aggression on his opponents and knock them out with a combination of powerful punches. Even if Jon has shown himself to be a smart man in interviews, he transforms into a different being as soon as he steps into the octagon. Once in his realm, his wild and untamed side takes over his body. For this reason, no fighter can stand a chance against Jon Jones unless he is willing to leave his humanity outside the octagon. But since no UFC fighter is crazy enough to do so, Jones continues to dominate every category he fights in. Number 5. He believes in Jesus Christ. Another thing that makes Jones a powerful opponent is his faith in Jesus Christ. As you know, a fighter who believes in a higher force is the worst enemy you could ever face. If you don't believe me, you can ask the Vikings, who conquered England and terrorized its inhabitants for hundreds of years because they were sure those who died in combat would go to Valhalla. Jon Jones believes he was chosen by God to be an undefeated fighter. He also believes he will be remembered as the greatest fighter ever. During an interview, he went so far as to state that he was confident with all his spirit. Therefore, a man who wanted to defeat him and the God he serves would have to defeat him. However, since he became a faithful believer in God, no opponent has ever had a chance to defeat him. Number 4, he thinks about how to destroy his opponents. Jones doesn't just seek victory. Instead, he seeks to inflict as much damage on his enemies as possible to break their spirit and morale. His conviction to crush his enemies makes him too dangerous a man to let loose. However, in a controlled environment like UFC, he can unleash all his fury and put on a great show for his fans. For this reason, he can dominate each of his bouts with relative ease. Ever since he beat the crap out of Daniel Cormier, few people have doubted the champion's skill and prowess. His thirst for blood makes him an opponent no one wants to face. Number 3, he seeks to become the best. Jones possesses one of the greatest virtues a fighter needs to succeed in the UFC. He dreams of becoming the greatest fighter of all time. However, he does not state this lightly but acts accordingly to achieve his goals. He has worked hard to dominate the UFC and has developed the most lethal techniques to crush every fighter who dares to take him on. His unbreakable spirit makes him one of the greatest fighters in history. So, he would never have made it this far in his career if he didn't have the will to be the best. Number 2, he scares his enemies. Jones' presence is extremely frightening. Imagine facing a guy who loves to fight and seeks to inflict as much pain on you as possible. A few years ago, Jones claimed he would kill Daniel Cormier in the ring during a heated exchange for ESPN. And the scary thing is, he actually meant it. For this reason, many fighters are terrified of Jones' mere presence and fear of becoming his next victim. There are videos of Jones wielding guns and chasing down a robber with a shotgun, proving that he is a guy who is not afraid of death and would not hesitate for an instant to take another person's life. Fear is one of the most powerful tools a fighter can have. If you can frighten your enemy, you can defeat him before the fight begins. His intimidating presence has helped him reach the top of the UFC. Number 1, he comes from a family of athletes. Jon comes from a lineage of warriors and elite athletes. Each man in his family is exceptionally good at what they do. The Joneses are a family of talented athletes. His older brother, Arthur Jones, won a Super Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens in 2013, while his younger brother, Chandler, won a Super Bowl with the New England Patriots. For this reason, Jones has grown up with great athletes. His discipline and hard work result from growing up with brothers dedicated to improving their physical abilities. When you grow up in a family of elite athletes, it's only natural that you follow in their footsteps. It's the same with children born into a prominent family of lawyers who become successful professionals. It is scientifically proven that we are like the 5 people we spend the most time with daily. That's why if your friends are junkies, there is a high probability that you will end up becoming one. However, given that Jones has had the privilege of sharing a table with the best athletes in history since he was a kid, he has developed the conviction to become the number 1 fighter in mixed martial arts. Outro. But what do you think is the main reason Jon Jones is the greatest UFC fighter of all time? Do you believe there is a fighter who could beat him? I'll be reading you in the comments. Before you go, be sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. I will see you in the next video.